Hello again. This is the continuation of the Beatitudes, which I was asked to do by several people, and I've done so far. Blessed are the poor in spirit, and blessed are those that mourn. The need for internal honesty. If you're going to get into the kingdom, you've got to face the fact that we're all a mess in one way or another. Sin is a real category. And the only way out of that is repentance, which means really regressing, mourning over what you've done, and the promise is that you will be comforted. And even that has a sting in its tail, because it will push you into activity you might not want. Now, the third one, the Catholics put this one second. I think that's because they take Vaticanus as the lead text. I think it makes more sense with the other text put blessed are the meek as the third one, because it flows naturally from seeing the truth, repenting, and now you're in a new state because you've been forgiven. And this was the beatitude that took me the longest to come to terms with that, and to see at least one way in which you could understand that it works. And that was Barclay, who's wonderful on New Testament Greek of the time of Christ. And the word meek, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The word has been used to describe a horse that has been broken in and trained and is now ready to ride into battle. You get the picture. You are meek if you can think of yourself every morning as saying, Lord, ride me into battle today. And I know a few people who say that every morning now, because they've told me they do. One being a very memorable lady surgeon who said it's the perfect thing to say as I shut my car door and head towards the department of surgery, Lord, ride me into battle today. Yes, but the good news, of course, is that the horse doesn't have any big plans for the day. He has only one thing to do, and that is to obey. And at any given point, virtually every one of us know which bit of our lives are currently disobedient, and they have to become obedient if we are to get the benefits of meekness. Actually, it's a wonderful picture, isn't it? All you have to do is to be attentive to whatever way the Lord speaks to you and obey. That's what the horse does. The horse has no idea what's going to happen in that battle that day. It just does what the rider tells him to do. It's a good picture. But inherit the earth? That doesn't look right, does it? I mean, we all envy the rich in our bad moments. If we look at their social outcomes, we probably wouldn't be envying them so much. People magazine is just about the ultimate rubbish, isn't it? Because it doesn't deal with the consequences of the world they're in and the way they live and their arrogance, etc., etc. Yep, the world is consequential. And when you're ridden by Christ, the consequences are good. That's the difference. But you don't inherit the material world. You're promised enough every day. Give us this day our daily bread. We should be at the level of needing to pray that, because that's a safe level to be. No, the world we inherit is quite different. It wasn't an accident, I think, that Mother Teresa and Princess Diana died very close together, because they illustrate the two worlds. Mother Teresa could put all her possessions in a bucket, but she could land anywhere in the world and be loved in a way. Diana was loved too, but not in the way that Mother Teresa was. Princess Diana was looking for relationship and love, and I don't think she ever found it in the way that she was looking for it, which is very sad. No, Mother Teresa was richer. So if you think of riches in terms of what's in the bank or what you possess, it's back to the first beatitude. This is the way the Beatitudes work. When you get stuck, you go back to the first one and work your way through again. You have to see that materialism as a way of life, as an object for life, is utterly inadequate. But those who choose to give up the world are amongst the richest people in the world, in the deepest sense. They live very, very satisfying lives. So that, like Paul, he said, okay, so I'm going to get my head chopped off. That's okay. I don't have a problem with that. And he didn't. And of course, the early church, there were hundreds of thousands of willing martyrs. The church had to say, look, you don't go looking for it, but if it comes, you accept it. But they accepted it joyfully. And that's really something that the world noticed and couldn't deal with. That's what meekness produces. The first letter that I know, written by a Roman administrator to Rome asking for advice, was asking for advice about what to do about these Christians, because they were doing two things. They weren't killing their own babies, and they were rescuing the exposed babies of others. Throughout human history, human couples have always thought, we can't handle a baby. And in the ancient world, they just left the baby in the dirt by the entrance to the city, and if someone wanted to pick it up, they did. Otherwise, the dogs ate it and nobody cared. That's what the Roman administrator expected. But once Christianity came along, and there's no explicit teaching about this, they stopped exposing their children, which meant, of course, that they would grow as a group, and they did. In 300 years, they took over from Rome without a sword, like the Muslims. The Muslims fought their way to power. The Christians loved their way to power. And then they started picking up other people's babies. And that was really a step too far for this administrator. This was going to accelerate the process of Christianization. He was smart enough to see that. Just imagine that you had been dumped at the city gates, and then a Christian couple had picked you up. They didn't tell you that you were their natural child until they thought you were old enough to understand it. And then they said something like this: we need to tell you a story. We were walking out of the city into the countryside, and when we got to the city gates, someone had left you in the dirt where babies are left. You were alive. And the love of Jesus so flowed through us that we had to pick you up. And we're so glad we did. You don't need to preach the gospel to that child, do you? It's been lived. And that no one can take away from you. So, something to think about. Next time I'll move on to the next one and how those three motivate real social policy. Have a good week.